Good day. At this hour, we await a statement from the White House briefing room from President Obama, who spoke earlier today with the Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki and told him U.S. troops will leave Iraq at the end of this year, ending some speculation that some remaining troop presence would stay beyond that deadline. Let's get right to the White House. NBC's chief White House correspondent Chuck Todd is standing by. Chuck, what can you tell us?
Well, look, let me pick up on that last point you just mentioned, Savannah, and that's what happened here is they couldn't work out an agreement inside the Iraqi government. They couldn't work out an agreement on exactly what conditions it would be that U.S. troops would stay under, what they would do if they were there. Admiral Mike Mullen, right before he officially retired, visited Iraq and told the Iraqi government, you've got to make a decision on this. They couldn't come to an agreement, and so today the president had this video conference with Prime Minister Maliki, and they agreed jointly this is the best way forward. And let's remember, this was an agreement to pull all troops out by the end of 2011 that was originally signed and agreed to by President Bush in 2008. And of course, this has been the timeline that President Obama has said he would stay on, and that's what he's going to announce today.
And Chuck, let me quickly turn to Richard Engel, who's with us here in New York. Both sides portraying this as a positive development politically, both leaders happy to have this clean break, as it were.
Well, there are significant risks as well. There are 39,000 U.S. troops in Iraq right now. That number is going to go to zero. There was talk that around 2,000 to 3,000 American troops would stay on as trainers after the end of this year. What we're going to hear now is that those troops will not be staying on. That means there's no presence, no American training wheels on the Iraqi military anymore.
All right, and Richard Engel here is the President of the United States.
Good afternoon, everybody. As a candidate for president, I pledge to bring the war in Iraq to a responsible end for the sake of our national security and to strengthen American leadership around the world. After taking office, I announced a new strategy that would end our combat mission in Iraq and remove all of our troops by the end of 2011. As Commander-in-Chief, ensuring the success of this strategy has been one of my highest national security priorities. Last year, I announced the end to our combat mission in Iraq, and to date, we've removed more than 100,000 troops. Iraqis have taken full responsibility for their country's security. A few hours ago, I spoke with Iraqi Prime Minister Maliki. I reaffirmed that the United States keeps its commitments. He spoke of the determination of the Iraqi people to forge their own future. We are in full agreement about how to move forward. So, today, I can report that, as promised, the rest of our troops in Iraq will come home by the end of the year. After nearly 9 years, America's war in Iraq will be over. Over the next 2 months, our troops in Iraq, tens of thousands of them, will pack up their gear and board convoys for the journey home. The last American soldier will cross the border out of Iraq with their heads held high, proud of their success, and knowing that the American people stand united in our support for our troops. That is how America's military efforts in Iraq will end. But even as we mark this important milestone, we're also moving into a new phase in the relationship between the United States and Iraq. As of January 1st, and in keeping with our strategic framework agreement with Iraq, it will be a normal relationship between sovereign nations, an equal partnership based on mutual interests and mutual respect. In today's conversation, Prime Minister Maliki and I agreed that a meeting of the Higher Coordinating Committee of the Strategic Framework Agreement will convene in the coming weeks. And I invited the Prime Minister to come to the White House in December as we plan for all the important work that we have to do together. This will be a strong and enduring partnership. With our diplomats and civilian advisors in the lead, we'll help Iraqis strengthen institutions that are just, representative, and accountable. We'll build new ties of trade and of commerce, culture, and education that unleash the potential of the Iraqi people. We'll partner with an Iraq that contributes to regional security and peace, just as we insist that other nations respect Iraq's sovereignty. As I told Prime Minister Maliki, we will continue discussions on how we might help Iraq train and equip its forces, again, just as we offer training and assistance to countries around the world. After all, there will be some difficult days ahead for Iraq, and the United States will continue to have an interest in an Iraq that is stable, secure, and self-reliant. Just as Iraqis have persevered through war, I'm confident that they can build a future worthy of their history as a cradle of civilization. Here at home, the coming months will be another season of homecomings. Across America, our servicemen and women will be reunited with their families. Today, I can say that our troops in Iraq will definitely be home for the holidays. This December will be a time to reflect on all that we've been through in this war. I'll join the American people in paying tribute to the more than 1 million Americans who have served in Iraq. We'll honor our many wounded warriors and the nearly 4,500 American patriots and their Iraqi and coalition partners who gave their lives to this effort. And finally, I would note that the end of war in Iraq reflects a larger transition. The tide of war is receding. The drawdown in Iraq allowed us to refocus our fight against al-Qaeda and achieve major victories against its leadership, including Osama bin Laden. Now, even as we remove our last troops from Iraq, we're beginning to bring our troops home from Afghanistan, where we've begun a transition to Afghan security in leadership. When I took office, roughly 180,000 troops were deployed in both these wars, and by the end of this year, that number will be cut in half. And make no mistake, it will continue to go down. Meanwhile, yesterday marked the definitive end of the Gaddafi regime in Libya. And there, too, our military played a critical role in shaping a situation on the ground in which the Libyan people can build their own future. Today, NATO is working to bring this successful mission to a close. So to sum up, the United States is moving forward from a position of strength. The long war in Iraq will come to an end by the end of this year. The transition in Afghanistan is moving forward, and our troops are finally coming home. As they do, fewer deployments and more time training will help keep our military the very best in the world. And as we welcome home our newest veterans, we'll never stop working to give them and their families the care, the benefits, and the opportunities that they have earned. This includes enlisting our veterans in the greatest challenge that we now face as a nation, creating opportunity and jobs in this country. Because after a decade of war, the nation that we need to build, and the nation that we will build, is our own. An America that sees its economic strength restored, just as we've restored our leadership around the globe. Thank you very much.
What about Iran, sir? Are you worried about Iran?
President Barack Obama in the White House briefing room this afternoon announcing that the U.S.'s long war in Iraq is over. All troops will be out of that country by December 2011. This clears up an issue that the U.S. had with the Iraqis. There was a request, a thought for a time that there would be some troop presence, maybe in the neighborhood of about 5,000 troops left after the end of this year. But because the Iraqis would not guarantee legal immunity, legal protections for U.S. troops, the decision was made to pull all troops out. And so this war, which began in March 2003, will truly end by December of 2011. And as the president said, the troops will be home for the holidays. There are about 39,000 troops still in Iraq right now from a height during the surge of 166,000. And the figures that truly matters: total U.S. military killed in Iraq, 4,469, wounded 32,000. And now it's over to the Iraqis. And Richard Engel, my question to you is, the president just said it, the Iraqis will be in charge of their own security. Are they up to it?
There are many Iraqis who believe that the government is not up to it. And if you look at what's happening in Iraq now and over the last several months, sectarian attacks, car bombings have all been going up. The Kurdish militant groups operating in northern Iraq have become more aggressive. They recently carried out a major major attack inside Turkey, killing Turkish soldiers. The Turkish military is in the midst right now of carrying out an offensive along its border with Iraq and inside Iraq. And this is all with a U.S. military presence. When that military presence goes down to zero, many Iraqis fear that the tensions and fragility of the country will only be intensified.
As you said to me a minute ago, the training wheels will truly be off. And Chuck, as I turn to you, senior officials are framing this as something that both countries, frankly, are happy about for political purposes. The president now able to say those seminal words to the U.S., the war is over.
Republicans, particularly among the more hawkish Republicans, because you didn't hear him say we won the war in Iraq. You didn't. When you heard the word victories, it was associated with defeats of al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden and what is going on in that part of this war. And it's that aspect of this, I think, that you could tell the president and his speechwriters chose his words very carefully. We are leaving in a position of strength, he said. It was just walking that line there. And frankly, that's been the way the American public reacts to the Iraq war itself. It's always been something that you see the conflict, frankly, in public opinion.
And of course, there will be some small troop presence in association with the embassy that will remain in Iraq. And senior officials explain they're hoping there will be a strong military-to-military relationship where the U.S. continues to sell arms to Iraq, to train Iraqi soldiers, but a relationship that's closer to the one we have with Egypt now or with Jordan, not this massive troop presence on another country's soil. So to recap the news today, President Obama from the White House briefing room has announced that all U.S. troops currently in Iraq, a number of about 39,000, will be home for the holidays. Continuing coverage throughout the day on MSNBC, MSNBC.com, and full reporting tonight on Nightly News. I'm Savannah Guthrie, NBC News, New York.